Sonic Boom. Uh-oh. I think the internet is pretty well aware by now that Big Red Button's debut Wii U title, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, turned out to be a steaming pile of disaster. But that game seems to be hogging most of the spotlight, for obvious reasons, and not as much attention is being given to his little brother, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal on the Nintendo 3DS. Thankfully, the game was developed by another team known as Sanzaru Games, and from my playthrough of it, I can tell that more care and effort was put into making it a smoother experience, compared to its big bad brother that runs at 2 frames per second. Now, that's not to say that the game is some glorious masterpiece that all gamers and Sonic fanatics should run to the store and pick up, because it's certainly not that. It's just not a total failure. In Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal, Sonic must team up with his pals Tails, Knuckles, and Amy's best friend who has a few screws loose known as Sticks, as they set out to rescue Amy from the clutches of the slithering serpent known as Lyric. As for how Amy ends up in such a sticky situation, well, she happens to discover a secret ancient language and manuscript detailing the history and whereabouts of a lost crystal of power, which is what prompts Lyric to snatch Amy away so he can get his meaty claws in this long forgotten power and destroy the world. You know, typical villain 101 stuff. Fascinating. And honestly, I have no clue if Shattered Crystal takes place before or after Rise of Lyric, as their storylines don't seem to harmonize with one another. Chalk went up for the lack of continuity, baby. Unlike Rise of Lyric, Shattered Crystal follows more closely to the footsteps of classic 2D Sonic titles, but Sanzaru Games decided to throw in a new twist that ultimately doesn't really work out in its favor. That being, adventure! Throughout the game, you will experience 3 types of levels: large-scale adventure stages, on-rails continuous running levels, and rival races that are all about the speed Sonic is known for. In the adventure stages, Sonic and his crew will put their unique abilities together to circumvent giant levels, and when I say giant, I mean giant. I'll get to that later though. Sonic, Tails, the Hulk, and Sticks can each be swapped to instantaneously during gameplay with a quick press on the touchscreen or D-pad, and you'll be doing this often since their special abilities are needed to solve various puzzle-like elements. Sonic is known for going fast, but throwing in the character-specific scenarios makes it much more of a stop-and-go affair. You'll be running along for a minute, swinging like Tarzan from energy beam thingies, and cruising through boost pads to watch Sonic do his famous loop-de-loops, and blam, you hit a roadblock. The puzzles, if you can even call them that, aren't necessarily a bad thing in concept, as it fits the exploration-style gameplay that Sanzaru Games was going for. But the thing is, they are almost never cleverly done. It's usually something super mundane, such as having Sticks use her boomerang to hit an easy to reach switch, or having Knuckles burrow into the ground and follow a set path to another area. It becomes more of a chore as you progress through the game, and they don't offer much satisfaction, and you'll ultimately just want to switch back to good old Sonic and mosey along. The enjoyment of the game does shine through though during those segments when you're able to sprint, bounce off enemies, and swing from your Enter Beam all without stopping, but the exploration elements just kind of ruin the party. One huge problem with these adventure stages though is that they are way too long, taking a good 10 to 15 minutes to complete each. That might not be such a bad thing if you only had to play these stages once, but it's more than likely that you'll need to go back and replay them. Here's why. To unlock new stages, you'll need to have the required number of Sonic badges that the game requests. And to get more badges, you have to find the purple crystal shards, that look eerily similar to the shards from Crash Bandicoot by the way, and the blueprint pieces in each of these adventure stages. You might find most of the crystal shards and blueprints on the first run through, but you'll probably miss one along the way, which then forces you to go back into these long and drawn out levels to complete it again and hopefully find the missing pieces to get that coveted badge. This process would have definitely been improved if the stages were much more compact. Plus, it doesn't help that the pitiful map on the bottom screen is not really up to par. Now, don't get me wrong, it definitely is useful at times as it does help to locate where the purple shards and blueprints are, but overall, it's really just a mess and can be downright confusing. It's one giant blue blob, and it doesn't do a very good job telling you where you haven't yet explored. Even then, sometimes it seems like it is telling you there's some land below you, and wouldn't you know, it's just death knocking at the door. Thanks, Blue Blob, you're the best. As a nice change of pace for a few minutes, literally, in between these voluptuous adventure stages, you'll get to speed through tubular on-rail stages and race against bosses that are there for fan service and are shoehorned into the plot. Metal Sonic is one of those bosses, and let me just tell you, he is one of the worst offenders of being shoehorned into a game I have ever seen. Seriously, if you play this game, you'll understand why I say that. But anyways, these on-rails and racing stages are much more concise and get to the point, and eventually they became something I was hoping the next stage in line would be. The racing stages might have to be the best thing about this game, as the totally tubular levels don't change all that much. There's a slight difficulty curve, which is nice, but that's about it. Matter of fact, they all physically look the exact same, meaning you can't tell one from the other. It's like they pushed copy and paste like 5 times. But for Sonic fans, you'll probably have a kick out of the rival races, since they're all about speed and quick button presses, even though it does feel like the game plays itself during these segments. Oh well, it still looks cool, and I'm all about looking cool. Visually, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal is actually pretty well put together for a 3DS title. The frame rate seems to be at a near constant 60 frames per second from what I can remember, and there's a nice variety of 3D environments to make your way through, such as a jungle, a robot factory, and probably best of all, the ancient ruins. That area just looks pretty spectacular with its bright, colorful aesthetics. Now, it's not to say the visuals are all peachy keen, because they're not, especially the copy and pasted look of the on-rail stages, but overall, it's not half bad. There's also a few cinematic CGI cutscenes, which were probably my favorite parts in the rather boring storyline, and they are even better than what the Wii U version offers. I do wish there were more though, because they are much better than the cutscenes where the characters just stand around, grunt, and talk through text bubbles with their cheesy dialogue. And when it comes to the music, it's definitely a mixed bag. If you're hoping to hear a lot of upbeat rocking tunes that would fit right at home if you are a Sonic fan, well, don't hold your breath, because most of the soundtrack isn't that. Since a good majority of the stages are gigantic and are all about adventuring, Sanzaru Games went with a more mellow and moody atmospheric approach to the music that is more along the lines of being forgettable. So it's not going to be something that'll get stuck in your head and have you humming along to throughout the day. But there are some good tracks though, such as the game's main theme or those few instances when you get a pulse-pounding tune. But overall, Shattered Crystal fails to make itself a winner through its soundtrack. Now, once you have completed the near 5-hour campaign to save Amy, the game still offers more for you to do if you're willing. You can try and scavenge through every stage and find all the blueprints and crystals, or acquire tokens by completing stages quick enough or ending with a certain amount of rings. These tokens could then be used to unlock trophies a la Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And there's also a Knuckles boxing minigame, but it's just kind of weird. But overall, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal fails to excel and make itself stand out as a gem in the rather rocky Sonic series. The adventure stages mix classic Sonic gameplay with the repetitive and slow mechanics of character-specific scenarios impeding your progress. Tacking on the problem of these stages dragging on for way too long, you'll be relieved when you finally reach their end. Though the game runs pretty smooth and the graphics work well enough for a 3DS title, the music is much more forgettable. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely still fun to be had along the journey, even within the adventure-style stages themselves. Just don't expect to be blown away. So, in all, thegamingpixelshow.com doesn't think Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal is a total failure, but rather feels it's a so-so game. Oh, and skip Rise of Lyric too. It's diarrhea. But that will bring us to the end of this video, and if you like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up and add your favorites and all that good stuff, and you can stay tuned for more videos in the future. But I will talk to you in the next video, guys. Bye!